Okay, good morning everyone. Let's start with today's class. Yesterday we started with data manipulation. We said we've done starting with SAS, we've done data exploration, we started with data manipulation as a whole. Under this we specifically looked at proc format, which is basically assigning the value labels. We saw that what proc format does is that by default it saves the formats in the work library, which essentially means that the formats get written off as soon as the SAS session is closed. But I can also save my formats in a permanent library, but in that case I need to use options FMT search to tell SAS where to look for the formats apart from the work library. We also looked at explicit output statement. Basically, how do you create multiple data sets within the same code? We then went on to proc append, where we looked at the simple append versus the proc append. We saw that proc append is more efficient because the base file is not read in, but under the proc append I might have to use the force option if my file structure is not the same. I can also use the simple data step to append, in which case it will just append having all the variables, but obviously not as efficient as the proc append. We went to merge. First of all, difference between append and merge. Append means adding rows. Merge means adding columns based on a common key variable. So we could merge with data merge, where I can also use the concept of aliases and use the if command to decide what kind of joins do I want when I am merging two tables. Basically, do I want to keep records which exist in both of them, in some of them, or how do I want to play around with it? I also asked you to look at the proc sort for removing duplicates. What else did we do? We did the accumulator variable. The concept that one, because of PDV, I cannot initialize a variable with 0, because based on the PDV for each row, the variable will be reset to 0. But on the other hand, if I don't initialize, it creates further problem, because then I get missing plus value is equal to missing. So that is the reason why we decided to use the accumulator variable, where I could either use the word retain or otherwise just say new variable plus the variable on which I want to create the cumulative total, because that will keep retaining the values as I go down. The last thing we did before we ended the class was the by group processing. Basically using the by statement to create sections, sort the data within the by the by variables, so that I can use the concept of first dot and last dot to specifically either take out the minimum and maximum per section, or even take out the cumulative total per section. Any questions on any of this that we did yesterday first? Online people, questions?
For the merging, when we are specifying, we do not need to give any condition.
Then that's a full merge.
It's a full merge. There's no the inner join.
No.
Because in the slide it's mentioned as inner join.
It should be an outer join. I shall remember to correct that. Thank you. Online people, questions? Everyone is still on good morning in online people. Online people, can you guys hear me? Okay, so then I am assuming you guys are fine with whatever we did yesterday. Okay. Let's get on to loops. What are loops first? Loops are basically ways so that I can show Rugmani. Loops are basically some help that I get in a syntax if I want to repeat a task multiple times. Let me first explain something with absolutely. So it helps me rerun my iterations again and again with some coding efficiency. Let me first explain an example to you, which we will be creating in SAS, but let me first explain it to you in Excel. Okay, Sanchit. Sanchit, I'll also be slow, but I'm hoping it will get corrected soon at your end. So don't worry. Everyone knows about the concept of compounding interest. Okay. Let's say I have, let's say I have 12 months in a year. What I do is at the beginning of each month, I invest 1000 rupees. I also take an interest of this is the interest I earn. What is the total interest for the first month? This into this. So what is the total amount at the, let's call this column earned. So in this case, what is the new total amount at the end of the month? It is earned plus interest, plus the amount. What happens in the next month? In the next month, I invest 1000 rupees again, but I also continue to earn interest on what was the amount carried forward from the previous month. I again earn some interest. Total amount now at the end of every month is this. I am repeating this task for 12 months. So basically at the beginning of each month, I invest 1000 rupees. I earn a certain interest which increases the total amount that I have at the end of every month. And it's compounded, so it gets added to the next month's amount. Is this table clear to everyone? Online people, is this table clear to everyone? Okay. Now let's see if I want to do the same task in SAS. I want to create such sort of a table where for each month, given a certain rate of interest, I can calculate the total earned interest for each month. Let's see how we do that. Let me first pull up the code and then take you guys through it. I am saying I want to create a table called earnings. Amount is 1000. My amount is fixed because every month I am adding 1000 only. This is the rate is also fixed. Now look beyond this. I am now running a loop which starts with do and ends with the end. I am using a counter called month. So when I am using a counter, I have to specify how many times or what are the values that the counter can take. So I am saying the counter month can take values starting from 1 to 12. So basically what's going to happen, the first time I enter this loop, my month will be equal to 1. When it hits the end command, it will go back to the first line. Month will become 2 and it enters the code again. So this is what basically first of all a loop does. I am now saying that everything that is between my do loop and end will run 12 times, where my month will keep taking the values 1, 2, 3 and so on up till 12. Now, for each month, what happens inside the loop? If you look at this particular line, it's basically nothing but the total interest that is getting calculated using also the accumulator variable concept. The reason why I use the accumulator variable concept here is because the interest that I am earning in the first month, I will continue to earn it. So I am sort of adding to it. So this is basically saying, if you think about it, Let's say earned is the interest I earn every month. So I am saying whatever I earn for the first month plus whatever is the amount plus the earned from the previous month into the interest I get. Basically, if I look at it from an Excel perspective, I am saying this value here is basically 37.5 plus 1037.5 into the interest rate, because 1000 from the first month I will continue to earn. Did I make sense to you people? Okay. This 1000 is a permanent thing that now I have invested. Okay. Wait. Rugmani, can the other online people hear me? Okay. Rugmani, it seems to be a problem at your side. Hang on. Okay, so what I am saying is, what happens in the second month? My total amount is basically 1000 from the previous month, 1000 from the current month, plus I have also earned the interest from the previous month. This is how the 2037.5 is coming up. So basically, what am I saying? What is my interest? My interest is whatever I earn for the first month plus 1000 plus 37.5 into the rate. Yes? First, tell me, is this calculation clear or not before I move on? Online people, is this calculation clear? Ma'am, is that clear to you now? Other online people, where are you guys? Okay. So this is precisely what I am saying. What is this? This is the earned interest from the previous month, the new amount plus the interest from the previous month into the rate. And this is precisely what I have written here. My earned variable will keep getting new values as my month keep getting incremented. My amount stays fixed at 1000. So, do your hang on. Okay, let me say one thing. When I am saying month, it's just a name I am giving. I could have also said MNTH, I could have said even A. It's just a counter I am giving. The reason why I am calling it month in this stage is because I will get a variable in my data set called month, which will take the values 1 to 12. So I don't have to worry about renaming my variable later on. I can call it anything that is possible, that is already there. Manoj, no, I have not defined earned anywhere. So what happens when month is equal to 1, earned is basically a new variable that SAS sees. But remember, based on my accumulator variable, how was I writing my accumulator variable yesterday? Total plus amount. Total is my accumulator variable. Now apply the same concept here. Earned is becoming my accumulator variable where I am also adding interest from the previous month to the current month, and as well as I am adding the new interest I am earning for each and every month. Does that make sense, Manoj? Okay. Manoj, do you remember this line 3 from the accumulator variable? Now, let's say I am saying my accumulator variable is called earned. In that case, it will become earned plus amount. But what I am saying is my amount, which is an existing column, is also getting updated every time. Because for each month, I have to continue adding the interest for the previous month. It's basically, this is like a cumulative variable that I am doing. Should the rate be inputted in this format only, Rugmani? I could have also done something like this. I didn't need to define a variable. But again, why am I defining a variable? Because I will get it in my final data set. So I am writing whatever I can write so that I get these variables also in my final data set. Rukmani, do I need to initialize when I use my accumulator variable concept?
Is it Rukmani or Ruya?
Her name is Rukmani. Her name is Rukmani Iyer. So, remember, we don't need to initialize when we write my accumulator variable like this. It automatically also initializes, because what we said was whether I write or I just write this, it's the same thing. Remember? So I don't need to really initialize my variable. Okay. What are the variables I will get in my final data set? I will get amount, I will get rate, I will get month, and I will get earned. Let's run this code. Shika, you are absolutely correct. I could have also written 0.0375. It's the same thing. Sorry for any confusion. Don't worry. Okay, let's run this. Now see, I get the 4 variables that we were talking about. Amount stays at 1000. Rate stays at 0.0375. Month goes from 1 to 12. And I see my earned variable with the interest earned every month. So this is the concept of loops, where I am running the same code multiple times. I am telling SAS how many times I need to run. From a loops perspective, I start with do, I end with end. I have a counter which I have to specify how many times it runs from. Now, the one thing no one has asked me is, line 8 is fine. What is line 9 doing? What would happen if I don't write this line?
We get only the end line, the last line.
Online people, what will happen if I don't write the word output? Ashwin, it's not no output displayed. Some output will be displayed. What do the others think online? Remember yesterday when we did the explicit output statement, basically breaking the variable into the data set? Yes, Swati, you are correct. The reason why I wrote the word output in front of each and every data set is that I don't want the output to be written only in the end, in which case it would have been only one table. Basically, what happens if I do something like this? SAS will not do anything. It will run the counter 12 times and then it will output only for the last line. So if I run this like this, only the last row is displayed. Actually, where month has become 13 now, because when I exit the code, I exit the code when month is equal to 13. So that's what is the line that gets displayed. The reason why I need to write output here is because I want to tell SAS, before you move to the next value of the counter, also output the results of that particular counter value. So only when I run the output inside it, I will get all the 12 months. Does that make sense to everyone? Online people, does that make sense? Manoj, yes, the total in SAS and Excel are the same. Look at this. You saw the same value. Don't worry. Varun, just put out what is the code that you have written. Let me have a look at it. Somebody, you had a question. Yeah. So I can increase it to 24. I can increase it to 100. I don't have a limitation to that. Varun, again, paste your code. You must have done something stupid here and there when you were copying my code. Okay. So remember this, when I am running my loop, obviously one thing you have to be careful about is the syntax, but more importantly, you also need to worry about where exactly am I mentioning the word output. Now, this, if I run this code, how many values, how many rows do I get? 12. What will happen if I run this? This is exactly the same code that we had earlier, except now I am saying I don't have one amount, but I have 3 amounts. So in my code, I say, give me 1 second, just give me 1 second. You should come probably at 12. I mean, just to be on the same side. Okay, sorry. So now in this, okay. Okay, Varun is saying you didn't, okay, Varun is saying he didn't run the code, but he's asking why it is 13. So Varun, the reason when I do this, I get 13 is because what happens, my counter exits this loop when month becomes 13. So the code runs 12 times. After the 12th time, when it goes to the end, the month has become 13 and that's when it exits the loop. So look at this. I have month 13 with the interest 555 and look at this. I get the same interest even when month is equal to 12. The reason why this has happened is basically think about your code. When I exit the loop, my earned has become 555. My earned stays at 555, but my month has become 13 and that's why the loop is exited. So all other values, Varun, at this stage stay as they were at month is equal to 12, but only I end my code when my month has become 13. Does that make sense now, Varun? Ashwin, if you don't do calculation, what do you want to use the do loop for? Give me an example and then let's see. Varun, first of all, tell me, is the 13 logic clear to you now? Okay. Ashwin, waiting for your answer now. And while Ashwin is writing in, what am I do? Okay. So you are saying you want to run a code on 10 data sets using the do loop? that is where we start using macros. So hang on for that class. Because what you are saying is, I will want, so Ashwin is saying he wants to do something like this. He's saying do data set 1 to data set 10. The reason why this will not be working within the loops is because there are two aspects attached to it. Not only do you want to run a code 10 times, but each time the data set name also keeps changing. Because in the first time it will be data set 1, the second time it will be data set 2, and so on and so forth. When you think about that, that is where macros come into the picture. Okay. I have a table called invest. My invest takes three amounts now, 1000, 1500 and 2500. I am running the same code, this time on the set invest. In this case, how many rows will I get? Line 21 to 28 you can see is exactly the same. How many lines will I get in this case? 36. Because when I am reading this according to PDV, what is happening? The first time 1000 is taken in, and then 1000 runs 12 times. Then 1500 is taken in, 1500 runs 12 times, and so on and so forth. So now if I run this, I will get 36 rows. First 12 for 1000, then next 12 for 1500, and so on and so forth. Does that make sense to everyone? Online people. Other online people. So basically this is the concept of loops. Simple counters. Okay, Sanchit. Sorry to hear about your internet. You might want to cover up the class then through the recording. I don't have an alternative to give you right now. Okay, Varun is saying, what if my invest table has multiple variables? Varun, it does not make a difference if my invest has multiple variables, because I am using the variable only amount from that table. So it depends on how I am even writing my code. I am saying take the amount from the table invest. So this is your basic concept of loops. You have a counter which specifies how many times you want to run your code. The counter, you give a starting point, you give an ending point. Actually, you can do a lot more with the counter. Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to figure out where am I on this page. Okay. Right now, I said just the start to stop, 1 to 12. I can even tell SAS what step size to use. So default step size is 1, but I could have also said by 3, for example. So SAS will automatically say first month is equal to 1, second time month will be 4, and so on and so forth. So I can even, default is 1, otherwise I can tell SAS how many step or what is the step size to take. In fact, I can even do something like this. So I am again putting up a starting point and an ending point, but I am saying decrement from your starting point. So I have all of these flexibilities in my code. Varun, what I am saying is, if we don't write anything, if it is like this, then default counter gets incremented every time by 1. But if I don't want the default increment to come in, but I want to specify my own increment step size, or I want to reduce my counter, I can have any of the logics. I can do also something like this. Basically, all of this will happen in the do loop statement itself. So as I said, you can say 5 to 1 by minus 1. I can also say something like this. So instead of having the counter increasing by a certain values, I tell what all values should the counter take. So I have that option also. Okay. Rukmani, yes. So for example, you might want to do it monthly, or so this is monthly. If you do it by quarters, you will change your months, etc. accordingly. So in that case, what you might want to do, if let's say if you want to do quarterly, what you can do is you will say run it for each month, but maybe only store the months which are the ending of each quarter. Right? I can do that. Or this also gets me to my next topic, nesting do loops. Right now I was using only one do loop. How about nesting the do loop itself? One do loop within another do loop. So what am I doing here? Just take 2 minutes and read this line once. Okay. Varun has written the entire explanation of the code, which I am going to post for everyone. Let's see what everyone reads for this. So yes, what I am doing is I am running two loops, one loop within another loop. I basically say my first loop is the year loop, which runs 20 times. At the beginning of each year, I am investing 2000 rupees because this 2000 is outside my month's loop. When my year is equal to 1, I do the same calculation that I am doing, but I am writing the word output here, which means how many rows should I get at the end of the entire code?
12.
20 into 12. Because 12 for the inner loop and the same code will get repeated 20 times. Does that make sense for everyone? So if I run this, I get 240 rows for each year. For the 12 months, I get the capital and I get the interest. My capital keeps getting compounded every year, and I also invest 2000 at the beginning of each year. What would have happened if I would have mentioned this Output here. Online people, what would have happened if I would have mentioned my output here? Precisely, I would have got 20 rows where my month will always be 13, because I will exit the loop only when my month is equal to 13, and my interest will be the interest for the 12th month. Absolutely correct. I'm so happy you guys have learned this now. I hate this topic for some reason. Okay. Now, right now what we were doing, we were running the loop where I was telling SAS how many times I need you to run the loop. So 12 times, 15 times, or I am giving it different values. I can also do something like this. What am I saying here? Run the loop till the capital reaches 50,000. So if I run, this is what we call as conditional loop. Everything else remains the same, but this time I have written do until my capital reaches 50,000. So if I run this code, you can see I get the last value also. Why do I get the last value? Because I say greater than 50,000. What happens when my loop reaches here? The value is not 50,000. So it runs another time. It sees it's 50,000, prints it out and then stops. I can use do until also, or I can use this. What will happen in this case when I say do while capital is less than 50,000? What happens in this case? Isn't my capital always less than 50,000? Actually, I'm just thinking which one goes into the infinite loop. Tell me this. Between this which one is an infinite loop? You guys tell me which one is an infinite. Online people, which one is an infinite loop out of 41, 42, 43, 44? So be careful never to run an infinite loop. If you run an infinite loop, your SAS might crash. So let's remove this. What happens if I say do until capital is less than 50,000? Let's try these combinations. This one, the first one we've seen. Let's try this. Do until capital is less than 50,000. What will happen in this case? I get one row because it runs the first time. It sees it is less than 50,000. It stops there. And what happens if I say do while? What will happen in this case? Multiple outputs? It will keep running. Make sense? What you basically need to be careful is how you are using until or while. So again, okay, so this amount is greater than 50,000. What am I saying? Actually, sorry, good point. Let's talk about this. So this is saying do this only while the capital is less than 50,000. What will happen when you use the do while is do while runs first and then checks, do until checks first and then run. So in this, it runs this code, checks it is not more than 50,000, so it stops there. So if you see this code, look at this. When the expression is evaluated as true, only then the do until is not executed again. If the under do while, if the expression is false the first time it is evaluated, then the do loop is never executed. So remember the two differences, and remember never to run an infinite loop. So basically what I am saying is, I had these three codes. Let's put them up. What is going to happen in this case? How many outputs do I get? So when I run this, I get 13 rows. If I change this to this, how about this? So let's not run this. And how about this? No, but look at this. So what will happen in this case? The first time itself capital is more than 50,000. I get 0 rows. Because the first time itself the capital is more than 50,000, it just stops there.
It will execute one time, no?
No.
Like we say, do while execute.
Do until versus do while. Okay, but basically that's the concept of your loops. Loops with counters where you specify the step size. Step sizes can be positive or negative. You can specify actual values that the counter should take. You can nest loops. So Rukmani, the quarter concept that you were talking about, I might want to run nested loops where inside I am calculating for every month, but outside loop is then playing or resetting it for every quarter. So here I was going year by month, there I can go quarter by month. And the last thing, conditional loops where I have do while and do until. Do not run infinite loops. Do while will check first and then run. Do until will run first and then check.
Hello, I'm still not clear over the last.
Is this clear to everyone?
No.
Online
on
people.
The last one. Yeah, hello. The last one, 61 to 68 line. Hello.
Online people have got lost. Okay. The last.
Last one.
Yes, Ashwin. Though if it goes into an infinite loop, the only option is to stop SAS. You might have to restart your machine in some cases also, but maybe just stopping SAS itself will also be fine. Okay. Let's now, last one not clear. This one, Dinesh? Okay. Dinesh, what am I saying? I am saying run the code while the capital is greater than 50,000. If you read my line 63, the first time itself I am saying my capital is 51,000. What do we say with do while? It will check first and then run. Now when it gets into the first counter, it says capital is more than 50,000. So it stops running at that stage itself and I get 0 rows as my output.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Fine.
Then it will keep running infinite times because it will be always more than 50,000. Okay, let's get on to the concept of arrays. Okay. Varun, I don't know Java or .NET. I cannot say anything. If anyone thinks about it, I am not from a technical background at all. Okay, let's talk about arrays. What are arrays? Arrays are basically, I might create dummy variables in SAS which can take different variable names. So let's say I want to perform the same operation on 15 columns. One option is I can write the same code 15 times. So I can write variable A into 2 is equal to new variable A, variable B into 2 is equal to new variable B, and so on and so forth. Or I can use this concept of an array. What is an array? I am going to create a dummy variable where I will store the name of these 15 variables. And I have to run the code over 15 variables. Let's store the name of 15 variables in an array. Now I can use this array within my do loop so that I tell my loop run it 15 times and each time take the variable name as the name from the array. Look at an example so that it becomes clear to you. Let's say I am creating a table called array underscore temp, which is nothing but giving me, it gives me 5 weeks of temperatures for different days. So I have temperatures for all 7 days across 5 weeks. Now this temperature, as you can see, is in Fahrenheit. What I want to do is I want to convert each of these columns into Celsius. What does that mean? I need to create a copy of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday with the Celsius calculation. So either I can write the same calculation 7 times for each and every day, or I can use the concept of an array. How do we do that? I am creating a new data set using this current set. Now look at what I do. I define an array. The name of my array is WKDAY, basically weekday. I tell SAS that my array can take 7 values. What are the 7 values it can take? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I am basically, this line is saying weekday 1 is equal to Monday, weekday 2 is equal to Tuesday, 3 is equal to Wednesday, and so on and so forth. This will happen only for weekdays 7. Everyone with me till now? Once I have done this, I can run a loop 7 times and I am just saying I am using the counter that I am using here. I am also using it within the array because I have defined my array like this. So when I is equal to 1, what is the calculation? Monday is equal to Monday minus 32 into 5 by 9. When I is equal to 2, then I get the Tuesday. So I can basically, instead of having to write, otherwise I would have had to write this line 7 times for each day. Now using the concept of arrays and loops, I have done the same thing in just 3 lines. So if I run this code now, you can see I get all the new values in my variables. I also get a counter I, and I will be equal to 8 because only when I is equal to 8 the loop has exited. Does that make sense to everyone? Online people, does that make sense? On data types, it's Varun, it's a numerical calculation on numerical variables. These were numerical variables. I am doing a calculation on it, so it results a numerical variable. Okay, Nabajit. Ideally, arrays are written with these curly brackets, but even if you write them with the normal round brackets, it is fine. It does not make a difference. So brackets are not that significant in this entire syntax. What if I have a character in the column? Varun, if you have a character in one of the columns, then this calculation will only not work. SAS will say that at this particular counter, the calculation experienced an error. Your underscore error underscore becomes 1 in the PDV and SAS stops executing.
You have to mention output here.
No, because I'm creating a new variable. The reason why I had to mention output earlier was because I had to say which rows I want. Variables will anyway continue to come. Online people, was this understood? Classroom online, everyone, did you guys understand the concept of arrays? Basically, super efficient if you are using arrays within loops because you don't need to repeat your task multiple times. Oh, Manoj, this is the formula of converting from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So the formula for converting Fahrenheit to Celsius is Celsius is equal to a Fahrenheit value minus 32 into 5 by 9. This is the formula. So my Fahrenheits come from Monday, Tuesday, etc. And I am replacing my existing variables itself. Any other questions, online people? I can use arrays to overwrite existing variables or basically use it within calculations, or I can use array to even create new variables. So look at this. What I have here is, let's say I have different athletes. I have their weekly weights. So I have their weights around across 6 weeks. This is the data set I have. I have the athletes for whom I have 6 weeks of weight. What I want to do is I want to calculate the difference between each and every week. So weight 2 minus weight 1, weight 3 minus weight 2, and so on and so forth. I want to calculate the difference. Again, one option is I can write individual lines. So for each difference, I can write an individual line, or I can use the array. How will I use the array here? Here I am defining two arrays because I also want to create new variables. I can't replace existing variables here. What am I saying? I have one array called WT. WT can take 6 values. What are the 6 values? Weight 1, weight 2, weight 3, weight 4, weight 5, weight 6. The reason why I can write it this way is because the last letter here is numeric. So SAS automatically knows it will keep incrementing the variable name from weight 1 to weight 2 to weight 3 and so on and so forth. I don't need to write weight 1, weight 2, weight 3, weight 4 the way we had done it for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So this is one array. I also say I want to make another array because I need to create new variables. If I have 6 weeks of weight, how many differences will I have? 5. I have an array with a dimension of 5. I am telling SAS make a loop 5 times. How? Weight difference 1 is equal to weight 2 minus weight 1. If I run this code, I get the original weights and I now get the new columns. So this time I have created an array to even create new variables. Any questions on this? Varun says, what if I have to access the 5th row value of weight 1 column? Varun, what will you do by accessing that? Tell me what you want to do. Don't tell me I want to access the 5th row value of weight 1 column. See, when I am talking about arrays, I am talking about variables. My array at no point of time is telling me what row to look at. In the earlier case also we were using arrays for columns because I was changing Monday, Tuesday, etc. Here also I am using array on columns. Okay, Varun says sometimes I might not want to do the calculation for all the athletes. I might want to do it only for some athletes. If that is the case, Varun, I can use the where statement, or I can say run the loop only if the athlete name is equal to whatever Carl or whatever you want.
Can we display weight diff one column in between the weight 1 and weight 2?
No, because remember what we said, new columns are always added to the rightmost.
Any weight?
See, remember this. No, remember this. When you are working with SAS, you are generally not working with small data sets. So you are not bothered about the order of the columns.
In practical scenario, we need to do that.
In that case, you can do something like, remember when we were doing the data lines, I could define the length in the first code, and as I am defining my variables in the length, that's the order that comes in. So basically, I mean here, this is like really stupid, but still, if I would have said my length first, I want weight 1, and let's say just some 20 dot or something. Basically, what will happen? This is the first variable, but this happens when I am creating a variable,
Not with the array.
not with my current table as it is, because my current table will always be read as it is. Any other questions on this, online people? Okay. Remember one thing. Even though I am using array so that I can do the same task over various columns, you cannot use array for labeling, formatting, drop, keep, length. So don't use drop, weight, I. That will not work. Or format, weight, I, weight difference, I is equal to 20 dot. That will not work. Also, array exists only for the duration of the data step. What does that mean? When my code has stopped running, the concept of or the definition of that array is lost. Because that array is defined only within the code, I did not define the array outside the code, so it is existing only within that code. These are just different ways of writing this array. So you can write this. We could have written just quarter1 hyphen quarter4, the way we did it for the weight column. You can even write it like this. So what is this saying? Sales 96 takes, totals 96, sales 97 takes, totals 97, and so on and so forth. Just basically different ways of writing the array. As I said, brackets are not important. You can use any of the brackets type. We already said you can use it like this. Okay. The last thing here, in all the examples that I showed you for the arrays, either I was picking up the values that were already existing in the table. For example, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday thing, these values were already existing in the table. Or even in this case, I was picking up the values from weight 1, weight 2, 6, or I was creating new variables using the array. Sometimes you might want to assign your own values to the array. So when I say weight 1, that always should mean 9,000. When I say weight 2, it should always mean 10,000 and so on. So sometimes I might want to assign my own values to the array. The way to do that is very simple. We did the definition till here, G4 tak. In the following bracket, you can assign the values also. So now what is this doing? It is saying I have an array called goal which has a dimension of 4. G1 takes the value 9,000, G2 takes the value 9,300, 9,600 and 9,900. So these are again just different ways of specifying the array. And the last thing, in case I have this, what will happen? We saw when I was using I used to get printed to my output data set. Remember when I saw the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, my I became 8 for each and every row. If I am using something like this, what does that mean? I will get 4 variables in my data set where G1 will have the value 9,000, G2 will have the value 9,300 and so on. I might not want to store these values in my final data set. If that is the case, I will also add the word underscore temporary underscore. So in this case, SAS will not create these 4 variables in the final data set. Make sense to everyone? So that's it for the arrays. Use your arrays to basically perform repetitive tasks on various columns. You can use it to create new columns. You can use it to replace existing columns. You can ask arrays to take up values from the table, or you can yourself assign the initial values to the arrays. Make sense to everyone? Online people, any questions on this? I'm still waiting for others, yes and no. With that, we finish data manipulation. Oh my God. Varun says, if I have to multiply Alicia's weight 1 with 2 and Betty's weight 1 with 3, can I do that? Varun, what did I say? When I am working with arrays, I am worrying about my columns. What you are talking about is also rows. So think about it that way as to how you will include your if or where statement within the do loop to carry out these multiplications. When you are saying weight 1 into weight 2, I am basically saying weight I into weight I plus 1. From my side, I am just saying that. But think about how will you include your rows, because your rows will only get affected based on the if or the where condition. In fact, there you will also have to worry because the data might start getting filtered. I can use my if and where also in my array because it's all a part of data step. I can keep combining these statements. But just think about a logic as to how you will do this. No, within the array, I cannot specify rows. My arrays work only on variables.
Does it mean we cannot read the data from an existing table? Like you were specifying, we can work only on the variables, not on the rows. Like
So a table is a combination of variables and
I
rows.
have a table, existing table, and it has 10 observations. And I need to read only 7 values out of it.
No, so that is not got to do with arrays.
You cannot do that.
When you talk about anything on your rows, etc., either you go into where or if, basically your filtering side, or you will probably go into your macro side. But arrays is just based on columns. Arrays is based on columns. You can, within the arrays, you can't define which row I want to go to. So array I does not mean row I. It means variable I. So if I am using an array within a code, I will apply it on all the observations until and unless you have placed your where condition in such a way that you are filtering the data itself. So you are filtering the data only to have, top 7 rows or something. In that case, I am saying my final data set will only have 7 rows. That is anyway outside the array definition. I can do it in any step. Array itself is not going to affect which row, how many rows, etc. It's just going to work across everything that you give it. Okay, let's do this. Let's take a 10-minute break at this stage. What I want to get into is functions after this. So we have enough time. I'm hoping we will be able to also finish this, but let's get into functions after this. Okay, let's restart the class. Let's start the class now on functions. In SAS, we can perform different functions. Remember this, but when I am saying functions, I am still doing a column operation. So whenever I am talking about writing a function, whether I am using it to, let's say, remember I said there are functions to convert text to numbers, numbers to text. I am creating new columns. When I am creating a sum, I am adding up columns to create a new column. So when we are talking about functions right now, I am working still column wise or variable wise. Now, let's first look at the data set that we will be using for this. I want to use a data set called stores here. This is basically some store selling data. Some of the variables you need to look at is, I have a store ID. which you can see is a concatenation of a lot of different things. I have a location, which is also a concatenation of the city as well as the pin code. I have the store manager name, which has the last name, comma, and the first name. What else do we have? I have some cost count information, total customers, basket size. Look at this variable, latest month profit. Ideally, it should be a numerical variable, but you can see this variable is left aligned, so it's actually has been taken in as text or character variable. I also have monthly sales. I have 12 months, 12 such variable. You can see this from here also. So this was the latest month variable, a profit variable, which is a character variable. I then have sales M1 going up till sales M12. I also have two dates, store launch date and store expansion date. But if you see, these variables have been stored as character and not date variables right now. Rukmani, it's not a difference between procedure and function. You differentiate between data steps and procedures. Data steps are more column operations, procs are more defined procedures. You might have procs to even work across rows, but data steps generally are more column calculations or column manipulations. Let's first look at, okay. I can perform all of these kind of functions in SAS when I'm talking about column calculations. Numerical calculations, statistical calculations, character calculations. So remember all your left, right, etc. I have a lot of date and time functions also. I have conversion functions, as I said, text to number, number to text, those kind of things. Let's first start with something simple. One second. Let's make your life easy. This is easy. What is this doing? Summing two columns where the second column is actually a multiplication of two columns and then taking the negative of it. But as you can see, I am doing the sum across two columns. Remember one thing. Yesterday I said missing plus number is equal to missing. However, sum of a column with another column, if there are certain values that are missing in a certain column, the answer will not be missing. So the sum function takes care of the problem of the missing values. This is also fine. Simple average function. In SAS, the average function is written using the mean function. So I am saying mean of M1 till basically M12. This is also doing the same thing, just the sum. But I can also write my variables like this. What is this saying? This is saying do the average of all the variables that come between sales M1 and sales M12. Now, remember this is different from what we were seeing in the arrays. In my array, what did I say? I say quarter 1 becomes quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. Here I am saying anything that comes between these 12 variables in order in the way the variables are there in my data set. So it is possible I have M1, I have some cost and I have M12. In this case, what are the three variables that I will have which will include in this thing? M1 and M12 and everything in the middle of it. So that is something you have to be careful about. But if your variables are in the correct order, the way mine were, all my M1 variable, my month variables were together, I can very easily write this code. I can also write something like this. What is this saying? All variables whose names start with sales underscore. Anything can come after sales underscore. It can be sales underscore Delhi. It can be sales underscore cost. It can be anything. As long as my variable name starts with sales underscore, I can use the same argument in my sum function. Basically any function within my parenthesis basically. And all the others are then just standard: min, max, median, var for variance, STD for standard deviation, and range. But as I said, this is a column wise operation. So if I look at a variable like range, what has basically happened? I have calculated a range for each and every row. It's a new variable that has got created. Okay. So functions we are using from a column operation perspective. Does this make sense to everyone? These are just very simple functions right now. Online people, does this make sense to everyone?
And these include all the variables M1 till M12.
M1 till M12, yes.
M1, M12 included.
Yes. Varun, no, I do not have anything which includes all the variables. What you are talking about still happens within proc SQL, not here. Okay. Swati, you can. So for example, if you look at my data set, let's say I wanted to do the sum of these three columns. I could write all of these three columns, or I could say of acquisition cost per cast hyphen profit per cast. So in this case, I am saying both of the variables as well as anything that is coming in the middle of the two variables. Okay. First of all, simple functions, forget this right now. Where is stores to? Okay, no, I can't do this till I make my data. Let's look at some conversion functions. I had latest month profit, which was actually supposed to be number but stored as text variable. Let's do this one by one. I have a function called input. What is the purpose of the input function? Text to numeric. But when I am converting text to numeric, the input function asks for two things. The syntax of the input function is input, the variable which you want to convert, and what is the format of the variable that you want of the output. And remember, this is the in format. So I am basically changing the in format. I have imported a variable which has come as a text. I want to change the format of that variable. So I will mention I want to change the latest month profit variable using the input function into a numeric variable. For this numeric variable, the in format should be comma 10 dot. Because otherwise it will just be a numeric variable which it will assign on its own, but I can define what is the input format or the in format that I want. I can write the in format within the input function, I can also format it. Remember we said there is a difference between in format and format, because format is how it appears, in format is the actual property of the variable. So I can format the variable as well as I can define the in format. Similarly, if you look at the date variables, I showed you the date variables had also come as character. We said ultimately my variable type is either character or numeric. So I can continue to use the input function to also convert characters to date. But in this case, what am I saying? My in format is date 9 dot, and I also want to put it as date 9 dot. Remember this, basically input used to convert character to numeric, and the second parameter that you need to mention within the parenthesis is what is the in format that you want of the variable. Let's say I do not write these lines. Forget about these 3 lines, I just write this. So what am I saying? Change the in formats of these variable. If I run this, you can see I have these variables date 1 and date 2. You can see they are not looking as dates. They are just looking as numbers. If you see the format, it is just simply saying numeric. When I define the format and I run the same code, you can now see the date icons. And I have converted these into actual dates now. The type is still numeric. So input is used to change the in format type from text to numeric. You will then on top of it apply the format to change how the variable is actually looking. If input is used to change text to number, I have another function called put. Put is used to change numeric to text. So let's say I had a variable segment. Let's look at where is segment. Where is segment? Here. But it's called store segment. I don't have something called segment. Just give me 1 second. Let me run this and see if I get an error. Then I will change the variable name. It did not give me an error. There is a variable called segment somewhere. This is still store segment. Oh, see. So what happened is, in the original table, I've lost that variable again. Where is that variable? Oh, wait. Sorry, yes. In the original table, I have a variable called store segment, which is numeric. I can now change this to a text variable by using the put function. So input is text to numeric, put is numeric to text, but in the input function, I mentioned the in format of the output variable. In the put function, I will mention the format of the input variable. So remember this, in both the function, you always write the format of the numerical variable. In the input, it will be the output because my output is a numerical variable. In the put function, my input variable is a numerical variable. In both cases, I will always mention the format type of my numerical variable. Does that make sense to everyone? Or someone's confused? Online people, confused or made sense? Online people, where are you guys lost? So basically just remember 2 things. 1, input text to number, put number to text, and second, The second parameter in both the function will always display the format of the numerical variable. In the input function, my output is a numerical variable, so I will tell you what is the in format of the output variable. In the put function, my input variable is a numerical variable, so I am mentioning the format of the input variable. Make sense to everyone? Let's run this and store this. I then have these some numerical function, absolute value, everyone understands? Online people, everyone understands absolute value? Hang on for the round function right now. I have the integer function, which is basically just taking the integer portion. It will not do any rounding, nothing. It will just take the integer portion of the variable and return that to you. I have two functions which are very interesting called the ceil and the floor. Let's look them up here because it'll be easier. Okay, sorry, one second more. This presentation that you will have has 103 pages. It basically has a lot many functions than what I will cover in the class. There are functions even beyond 103 pages. So the reading material has the popular functions that are used. What we are doing in the class are the most popular functions that we will use. But once you will understand these basics, the others will also become easy for you to understand. So, okay. So as I said, integer is doing nothing, but it is just going to take out the integer. It's just going to extract the integer portion and give it the ceil and the floor functions. Read this. It says the ceil function returns the smallest integer that is greater than or equal to the argument, while the floor function gives the largest integer that is less than or equal to the argument. Basically, if I have 2.75, what is the smallest integer greater than this number? 3. But what is the integer which is less than this number and closest? 2. So that's how your ceil and floor function works. Be particularly careful in the negative variables, the negative values. Because here, what is the smallest function? Sorry, greater than. This is the greater than and this is the less than, or other way around, whatever. As long as you understood the point. So I have ceil and floor which are sort of rounding functions, but they are rounding either upwards to the closest integer or downwards to the closest integer. Because by default, if I use the round function on this, what will happen? If I use the round function on this, what should happen? I will get 3 in this case. What will happen if I use the round function in this? Minus 3. It will be minus 3, right? So this will happen when I use the round function. Otherwise, I can use SAS, I can use ceil and floor to determine whether I want the highest closest integer or the lowest closest integer. So that was your ceil and floor. I explained the integer, and round obviously is just simple rounding to the nearest integer value. So if I run this, let's see what happens. Actually, give me 1 second. Let's do some keep here. So just the absolute value of the profits. This was the rounding. So you can see it's just rounding to the nearest integer. You can compare these. Let's actually remove the profit also now. That'll be easier for us then. So this is simply rounding. That's it. Look at the integer. It is just extracting the integer portion. What is the ceil function? Greatest in integer, greatest to it, I mean closest and greatest to it. So इसका कितना हुआ? 3, 3, 3, because it is greater than the number, while my floor in this case will become, make sense? Now I have more variations of the round function. This is the simple round function which we know. What is this doing? This is actually not rounding to the 1 decimal. This is rounding to the unit space. In the round function, now this is special. This is rounding to 1 decimal place. This is rounding to the units place. And that way this rounds to the tens place. So what will be the value in this case? Online people, what will be the value of x2? If I am rounding to the tens place, what should be the value? Online people, what should be the value of x2? Manoj is awake. What about the others? I have no idea where these others have got lost. Okay, online people, did you understand all of these functions that I had? Did you guys understand these functions? Still lost. Apart from Varun and Manoj? I have no idea where these people have vanished. Okay, now, online people, look at this. I have 43 line and I have 46 line. First, concentrate on 43 and 46. What is 43 saying? 43 is saying rounded to the nearest units place, while line 46 is saying rounded to 1 decimal place. So in the round function, when I have to round it to the nearest decimal place, 1 decimal place, I will use 0.1. But if I have to do it to the units place, I will say 1. If 1 is units, this becomes to the tens place. So this will become 220. And then this is hundreds place. So this will become, what is this saying? 2 decimal places. So look at the results that we get. My original number was 223.456. This was the simple rounding. This was rounding with 1 decimal place, 10 decimal place, 100 decimal place, 0.1, 0.01. Does that make sense to everyone? Online people, does this make sense to you guys? In fact, the beauty of the round function is I can even say something like what will happen in case I have x6? Absolutely correct. I want you to round the number to the units place, but even number. So if I run this now, it's the closest even number now. Does this make sense to you guys? Online people, does that make sense to you? Umair, I don't know what you wrote about 6 plus minus. So this is how the round function is very useful for us. Let's see more functions. Okay, so what have I done till now? I have done some numerical functions, basic arithmetic functions. I have done conversion functions, input and put. I have done numerical functions also. Let's now get on to dates. I am making a table which just has the two dates that we created. Both of these are date variables. Give me 1 second. I'm going to take parts of it. So just give me 1 second. Okay. Some simple functions on date and time. Extract the year, extract the month, extract the day. I also have a function called weekday. Same concept, 1 to 7. I can extract also the quarter here. So based on a normal calendar year, what is the quarter that my date lies in? I have a function called MDY where I can give the month, date and year, and SAS will create a date on its own. When I am creating a date of my own, I should also format the variable. Otherwise, it will just get displayed as a number. This function everyone knows. Today, I also have date time, which is going to give me both the date as well as the time as of right now. From a date, or from a date time. Now, this is a full date time variable. I can use and extract the date part, or I can extract the time part individually. So look at this. If I run this, today, which I made using the MDY function. I'm sorry, these are not my today's date, but still this is the MDY function. This is today's date, which I used using the today function. This is now date, which is using the date time function. This is the date part. This is the time part. And then after that, I had extracted the year, month, day, weekday, and the quarter. So just simple date or time extraction functions from if you have a date variable. Any questions on this, or this is fairly simple right now? Online people? Where are my online people today? Varun, we will do the formats in the input format, in the proc import thing. So actually there, you will get a file which has common formats that you can use. I think this is the file. No, but this is only date and time formats. But you will get a file from us which will have all possible formats that exist in SAS. So don't worry on that. Right now I'm just using very common formats. This is MMDDYY10. What does this mean? 246. I have slashes also, but I still have two more spaces. What does that mean? If you look at my card today, it has 4 parts to the year because I have to make a total of 10 length. So 2 plus 2 plus 4 plus 2 slashes. Okay. So these are just giving you the year, quarter, month, day, weekday. As I said, goes the same Excel funda. 1 is equal to Sunday and 7 is equal to Saturday. So the same thing. So there's an MDY function. If you give it individual column variables or actual dates, it will convert it into a date. Varun, coming to that only right now. So just hang on. Date and today functions. Time function, which is just the time right now. I also have date time, which is going to give me both date and time. Now let's get on to more functions in this. In SAS, I can calculate the difference between two dates and I can tell SAS at what interval I want the difference. So do I want the interval between two dates, I mean the number between the difference between two dates in number of days, in number of months, in number of quarters, number of year, what do I want? For that I use the function intck. intck is basically a date difference function where I mention the interval by which I want to calculate the difference, the start date as well as the end date. So remember, I think someone was talking about the date diff function when we were looking at it in Excel. It's doing the same part here. So if I look at this, these were the two dates. What is the difference between two dates in years? So just simple, year extraction, number of months between the two dates, number of quarters between the two dates, number of weeks, number of days. So the intck function does nothing, just you specify the interval by which you want to calculate the difference. Give it the starting date and the end date. It basically does the difference between them. You can use any of these intervals. I just showed you some of them. You can use any of these interval in your specification in the intck function. But remember this will only work as long as your two variables are actually dates. If they are not dates, then the SAS function the intck function will not work. Okay. If intck is to calculate the difference between two dates, I have another function called intnx. What is intnx going to do? intnx is going to add to a certain date. So if you read what I have written, I am saying take the column date 1, add years to it, and how many years should I add? I should have also formatted this variable because my resultant is a date now. It's not a difference or a number. So everything has got incremented by 2 years. But what do you see in this case? Everything has come to 1st January. The reason why this happens, don't worry, it's not a problem with SAS. Actually, SAS gives you the flexibility that when you create the new date, where do you want the date to be? Do you want it to be the beginning, the end? Do you want it to be the middle, or do you want it as it is? Default, as you can see, is I was adding 2 years, so SAS took me to the beginning of the year. If I was adding 2 quarters, it will take me to the beginning of the resultant quarter. So I can for example, what will happen in this case? I am saying take the date 1, increment it by 4 months and take me to the middle of the resultant month. Let's remove this. The intck function is clear to everyone first. Online people, is the intck function clear to everyone? Okay. So let's remove the intck function because I get too many columns. Oh God. Let's also format this. I did not specify where should I end, so it takes me to the middle, to the beginning of the year. This is, as you can see, taking me to the middle of each and every month. So it adds 4 months to this, takes it to April, and then takes me to the middle of the month. So that is what the intnx function is. You can ask intnx function to either give the beginning, middle, end, or the same date as it is incremented by the interval that you have specified. This BMES is basically called an alignment in terms of in terms of the parameter in SAS. All of these intervals are still applicable. What we had in intck, same thing applicable here also. These are just examples which we've given you, date part. Okay. I also have something called, so I was using intck function to calculate difference based on the intervals I specify. I also have a function in SAS called datdiff. Datdiff is also going to calculate the difference between 2 dates, but in this I have an option of specifying these 2 options. What is this saying? When you are calculating the difference between 2 dates, do you want to take as the number of days per month, or do you want to standardize the number of days per month? So you don't want 28, 30, 31 based on different months. You will say I will always have 30 days per month, which means 360 days for a year. I can basically play around with that. So if I want to standardize it, for example, think about it this way. When you get your salaries, do you get extra salary if there is 31 days, or do you get less salary if there are 28 days? So it's just standardized to, let's say, a 30-day month period, those kind of things. So I don't have to worry about exactly calculating the number of actual days in terms of difference, I can standardize the difference. Function in terms of using is very simple. I am just saying figure out the difference between two dates, either actual or based on 30 days, 360 days a year. Rugmani, what do you mean by US 30 360 or Euro 330? I am not using any currency. These are dates. So as you can see, let's take these two dates. Day counting conventions are different. For me, for SAS, the convention is calendar year. Standard calendar year. So if I say 20 December, this was date 1. What was the second date? 20th October. Actual difference will be just this minus this, 669, which is what you see here. But if I start counting the number of days, actually what is going to happen? For 2013, I have 360 days. For 2012, how many days do I have? 10 days. For 2014, how many months do I have? 9 months till September. So that is 9 into 30 plus 20 days of October. Where is my sum function? 660. So you see the number 660 here. So you can basically calculate the difference where you are specifying on what basis. Do you want a standardized month or do you want to take it actually as it is? The way I have dat diff, I also have year diff. Again, either actual or based on 360 days. So if I run this, actual number of difference in the years, or let's say 360 days a year. How is this going to get calculated? So this is 660. This is what happens in this case? 360 days. This is the total number of days that I have divided by 360 days a year, 1.833. This is the number you get. You can see this number here. I am not doing this calculation. This calculation is going to be very cumbersome because it will depend on 364, 365 days a year, etc. But basically, you understand the difference now, either actual or 360. Online people, did this make sense to you? What about other people? So these are your common date and time functions. Basically INTCK, INTNX, INTCK was difference based on your interval definition. INTNX is incrementing the date by a specified interval. Also you mentioned the alignment. Do you want the answer to be the beginning, middle, end or the same? and then we did date diff and year diff. As you can see, obviously these two functions are applicable in both, but for year diff I also have these options. So total number of days based on actual difference in days divided by 360 or divided by 365. We've done the conversion functions also, input and put. Okay, let's get to the last part, which is the text functions. I am creating a subset of the data which, thank you. What happened to my stores file? I am making a data set which has only 3 variables: store ID, location, and store manager name. Now let's see some of the text functions that we have. First of all, I have two variations of the length function here. What am I doing? One is actual length for each and every cell. This is the simple old length function as we know it. I also have a function called length C. This is doing nothing but what is the actual length for that variable as a whole. So the answer in this variable will not change per rows because the variable has only one length. So if I run this code, while the length function, the values keep changing based on what they are seeing in the actual observations. The length C just gives me the same number because this is the length of the column as a whole. So length versus the length C function. I then have lowercase, uppercase. I also have a function called compress. Let's only keep in my store manager say name, you see this comma which is coming in each and every name. As you can see, what do you think compress will do before I even show you the output? Online people, what will compress do for me? Online people, what do you think the compress function should do? Ankit is correct. It will just delete the commas. So look at this. This is lowercase, this is uppercase. It has removed the commas. So it has compressed out the comma. What else? Remember we had the mid function there in Excel. I have substring. What do you think this is doing? Start from the first letter and give me how many characters? So if I run this, just give me the first 5 letters. Now, In my original data set, where is my original data set? I had location which were where I had city hyphen and the pin code. In SAS, I have a very nice function called scan. What is the scan function going to do? I am sort of telling SAS on the variable, use this delimiter. When I am going to use my delimiter, I will basically break each and every values into two parts. This is the first part, this is the second part. I am then using that function to extract the first and the second part. So I am saying use the delimiter hyphen, extract the first part into a variable called city, extract the second part into a variable called pin code. As many parts that I have, it will basically extract it and I can take that number out. So you can see I have the city and I have the pin code separately from my location. I know functions is slightly boring. If I can do this, I can also, if you think about it, I can do the same thing for my store ID also. Because remember, my store ID is also can be splitted into three parts. I have a 1 part, 2 part and 3 part. So I can do that here also. Okay. What else do I have? I have a function called find. As usual, nothing, but it will tell me the position at which this particular character occurs in that particular variable. Hang on, Varun. So just, where is the comma? I used it on the store manager name. So where is the comma? The 7th place. Where is the hyphen? As usual, it will tell me the first occurrence of the character. So wherever hyphen occurs for the first time, here you can see it occurs at the 7th position. Make sense to everyone? Yes, Ashwin. For both the scan and the find function, I need to have a delimiter. What was my scan function? It was using the delimiter to break the entire value into parts. It then had a first part, second part and third part, but that will be applicable only if you have that delimiter present in your variable. Similarly, in the find function, you can use a space also, Ashwin. So I could have done something like this.
It's working as text to columns.
Yes, sort of like that. Okay. Let's get on to Varun's question, which is talking about concatenation. Find will only tell me the position of the first occurrence of the particular variable character. It will, just like Excel. In Excel also we had the same thing. It will tell me the position of the first occurrence. Okay. In SAS, I have a lot of concatenation functions. The reason why I have these variety of functions is because when you are concatenating data or variables in SAS, you might be concatenating dirty data. What is dirty data? Data with spaces. So you have all these possible concatenating functions in SAS. This function, just the cat, is going to concatenate the variables in the brackets, but does not remove any spaces. So it will just simple concatenate the variables as it is. While cat's function will concatenate but also remove leading and trailing blanks. What are leading and trailing blanks? Blanks before the value and blanks after the value. If you have data which says, let's say A space B, then it will not do anything. This will work only if there is space A or A space. So it will, yes, Saurav. So it will loop. So that's what leading and trailing blank means. I have cat T, which will only remove trailing blanks, which means it will remove this, it will not remove this. But the most useful is cat X, where it will remove the leading and the trailing blanks and also insert a separator. So when I'm concatenating three variables, I can use, for example, space as a separator, and then my variable will become first space, middle, space, last, because I have used space as a separator here. So I have all of these four kinds of concatenation that are available to me. In terms of removing blanks without concatenation, I have a trim function also, but it will only remove trailing blanks. So basically what I mean to say is SAS does not have a function to remove multiple blanks that might occur in the middle of the value. Make sense? But these are all the possible concatenation options in SAS. Let's look at these for example. What am I saying? Concatenate pin code and city with space and comma. What happened? Okay. What is my stores 5? I hope I have not overwritten it first of all. Okay. So let's show it to you here. I have a feeling this is not going to work in the old SAS. Oh, okay. Sorry. 1 second. The reason why this is not working is because I don't have these variables anymore with me. Sorry people, just give me 1 second. So this is my original data set where I have, oops. This is my original data set where I have both the city and the pin code. What I am doing is this. Let's remove this drop. This is not required anymore. So one is cat function which is just, it is not removing any spaces, it is just simply concatenating. So you can see there are so many spaces because you can see the space here. But the other one is the cat X, where I have concatenated using space and comma, and it has also removed all the unnecessary blanks for me. So these are your concatenation functions in SAS. I also have two really stupid functions, well, not really stupid functions, I can't say any more stupid, but what is the data type of the location and the new name? Text. What do you think, Varun, it will be? These will be obviously text variables. So if I just have the store ID, I have a function first called tranword. What is tranword doing? Wherever it sees str, it will replace it with store. I also have a function called translate. Translate is also a replacement function, but tranword will replace str with store. What translate will do is it will pick up each and every of these letters and replace it with the subsequent and the, I mean basically it matches the pattern. So A will get replaced with 1, B will get replaced with 2, C will get replaced with 3, and so on and so forth. So if I run this, you had tranword where str has got replaced with store, but you had translate. What has happened? I had E has got replaced with 5, A has got replaced with 1. But as you can see, this is a case sensitive function. So it replaced capital A, it did not replace small a. Both are replacement functions, but translate will replace in a pattern. The stupid thing that SAS has done, this is what you are replacing by, and this is what you are replacing. So don't get confused, because generally your syntaxes have been what you want to replace followed by replacing by. In this it's the other way around. Let's first do a recap before I move on. What are the functions we have seen? We started with simple arithmetic functions. Varun, if you are concatenating different parts of date, what was the function we saw? Remember we saw MDY. So MDY function will concatenate and make it into a date. So that's what I'm saying. Let's do a recap. What all did we do in arithmetic? Of course, we did sum, mean, var, standard deviation, range. But more importantly, we saw we can write of var1 to var2, which basically means everything that comes between var1 and var2. I can also say something like var underscore, or basically var colon. Any variable which starts with var. After this, we went to conversion functions, where we did input. Input was converting text to number. What is the second argument that we need to specify here? The in format of the output variable. I also have a function called put, which will convert number to text. The second argument that I need to mention here is the in format of the input variable. Basically, both stages I have to specify the format of the numerical variable. We then went on to numerical functions, where we looked at absolute, just taking the absolute value. We looked at the integer function, taking the integer part of the entire number. We looked at ceil, which is the greatest integer closest to the number, or floor, which is the least integer closest to that number. We also looked at round, but round with 1, 10, even 20, 0.1, 2 decimal places, or rounding up till 2 decimal places in even format. After this, we went to date and time function, where we saw obviously the usual year, month, day. We had weekday, we had quarter. What else did we have here? I could figure out the date part, the time part, today, date, time, now. We also had the MDY function to construct a date. What else did we have? INTCK to calculate the difference, where I will specify the interval of the difference. I had INTNX to increment the date by a certain interval, but here I have to think about the alignment. Beginning, month, middle, end, or same value. We then looked at DAT-diff, where I had the option of taking actual dates as it is, or taking 30 by 360 if I want to standardize the number of days per month. I similarly have year diff, where I had these, but I also had actual by 360 or actual by 365. Any other functions we did in date time? No. Then we went to the text function, where we saw the usual uppercase, lowercase. We did length. Online people, what was length C? Online people, what was length C function? Everyone is sleeping. Precisely. So Varun, length C is telling me the length defined for the column. Length is telling me the length for each and every observation of that column. Does that make sense to everyone? Where are my online people today? I have no idea. I also did the substring function, which was basically like the mid function in Excel. Mention a starting position, mention how many characters you want to extract out of it. We had the scan function. What was the scan doing? Using a delimiter, I can break the variable into different parts and I can extract different parts out of it. Compress, which will just replace whatever I mentioned. So basically remove that particular character. What else did we do? We did find, simple finding the position of a character, and then we had different kind of cat function to concatenate, worrying about how I want to, what do I want to do about spaces, or do I want to concatenate using separators or not. After this we did translate, which will just translate, replace based on a pattern, or tran word, which will replace the given phrase or a single character as it is. Any questions on any of this? Online people, questions? Sure, I will explain tran word. What about other people online? Look at this, Varun. Tran word. Wherever you see the word str, it will get replaced with store. And this is case sensitive because I have written all of this in quotes. So, wherever you see str, it has got replaced with store. Any other questions before I do one last function for today? Translate will check for each and every value. So it will check for each and every value but replace in a pattern. So A will get replaced by 1, B will get replaced by 2, C will get replaced by 3 and so on and so forth. So basically it will replace in that pattern. Okay, last one for today. Let's say I have this data set called test, which has only these 3 rows, one variable. I have a function in SAS called index, which sort of works like the find function only. What am I doing? I am saying find SPSS in each of my rows, find the position of labs, find the position of analytic. So if I run this is SPSS, it starts from the first position. For all the others, I get a 0 because it does not exist. The second one was labs, so it does not exist here, it does not exist here. It starts from the 9th character here. And what was the last one? Capital A and L, whatever. So it does not exist here, it exists here, it exists here. So this one's going to be 1, for example. So this is what your index function is doing. The main difference between index and find function. The index function, both of them are still searching for substrings within a string. However, the find function can have modifiers and also specify a starting position. So I don't want to always start from the first character. If you look at the find function, I can have, okay, sorry, I did not do this. I have an option of starting position. So I can say in your total string, let's say if this is my total string, I can say, or let me one second. Let's say if this is my total string, I can say don't start from the first character, start from the second character. So in that case, A will occur in 2. Also, the modifiers thing I find slightly stupid. The modifier basically is telling you whether you want to ignore the character case or not. But you generally, I mean, that is hardly used because you generally work with the same kind of data and you will not really keep changing it. So this is hardly used, but you have an option of I where you can ignore the case, or you have an option of T to trim the blank, which is also rarely used, but you have these particular specifications. What is interesting is, which I cannot show to you in my university edition because this does not work in the university edition, my starting position can also be negative. I generally work from left to right. If I specify -1, I am working from. So these are some advantages that I have in the find function. But again, to be really frank, they are rarely used because your data, you generally work in the normal conventional way only. You generally don't look for data right to left. But these are options that you also have within the find function. Now tell me, questions on this? Online people, questions? Okay, if there are no questions, remember everyone, you have assignments to be submitted by Wednesday, end of day. I have already sent you the assignment, the links where you need to upload the assignments and the instructions for it. Next Saturday, we will be taking up doubts from assignment 3 and assignment 4. So now your assignment 3, assignment 4, to be really frank, you can also look at assignment 5. So let's pick up doubts from assignment 3, assignment 4 and assignment 5 next week. The assignments will then get due the week after that. The same logic we hold. So every Saturday we will discuss doubts. Post that, Wednesday the assignments will be due. So use your week well. Practice what we've done. I am not putting up any pre-recordings because I think you already have enough to recap. You need to submit assignment 1 and assignment 2. Attempt assignment 3, 4, 5, which essentially means go well through the 2 classes. There is one question which a lot of people are asking. If I have a SAS code file, how do I open the SAS code file? Actually, it's very simple. Just drag and drop the file onto your code window. It will automatically open up. Any other questions? You have that open, this open also, yes. Or otherwise you can just simply drag and drop, whatever works for you. Okay, if no questions, enjoy the remaining of your weekend. Thank you and I'll see you next week.